of migratory water birds. You might be wondering about the connection between the flyway for migratory water birds and sustainable agriculture. Well, this session will showcase how agriculture, when done sustainably, especially for high value crops like rice, can benefit not only livelihoods, food security, and the economy, but also biodiversity, including migratory water birds, and the environment in the long run. So to start off the session, I will call the Director of Environment in the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Department of ADB, Yoko Watanabe, for the opening remarks. So just a bit of background, Yoko has over 25 years of professional experience working on biodiversity and natural resource management. Prior to joining ADB, she held key positions in the Global Environment Facility in Mongolia and in UNDP in New York, and at the World Bank Country Office in Rwanda, and at the World Wildlife Fund in Mongolia and in Washington, D.C. She started her development career at JICA in Tokyo and later at UNDP as Environment Program Officer at Nepal and Mongolia Office. Please welcome Yoko Watanabe.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Hope you have been having a great, productive past 4 days here at ADB, and welcome to ADB again. And it's such a pleasure to be here today for this Ibis Rice and how we can really promote regenerative agriculture and really consider balance between biodiversity and agriculture needs. So it gives me a real pleasure to be here and opening this really important session. And I actually have been involved in the initiative from the very beginning when I was at the Global Environment Facility and UNDP, and we had a couple of projects in Cambodia and other places on the Ibis rice and others, and also through the Satoyama initiative, which is a landscape level conservation initiative. There's been quite a lot of attention to this ibis rice production, together with the Japanese crane rice and other similar initiative around the world. And there's always been my passion to see how we can mainstream biodiversity in these key production sector, and rice is such a dominant agriculture sector in Asia, and we really need to think about how we can use these lessons and scale up in other projects that we do in ADB and beyond. So as you all are aware, we are in the midst of triple crisis in the world: the climate change, the pollution, the biodiversity loss. We've been hearing this over and over the 3 days as well as beyond. And we know that agriculture is a key cause as well as solution, in my view, to tackle this issue, considering that actually nearly 40% of the biodiversity loss or agriculture expansion is the cause of biodiversity loss. And the recent study actually showed that we are under threat of 86% of the species around the world because of agriculture expansion. And we really need to do something about this before it is too late. And this is also going to have strong impact to the agriculture production and food security as well, because agrobiodiversity and the ecosystem is a base for these production as well. So it's not that, we're just talking about we want to conserve these species and threatened species, but it is really a core to promote more production on agriculture and how we can really use ecosystem and natural resources in a better way. So we have been working on these issues for the past many years, but it really is an opportunity that we look into the improved soil health and significant improvement in the resilience of certain species, both on droughts and floods. And we see that ibis rice and other productions can promote biodiversity benefit, and consider the premium that we are seeing also on these rice, since it has biodiversity impact. I've seen in Phnom Penh, the rice price for ibis rice is actually almost 2 or 3 times higher than the rice and produces more benefit to both the producers as well as the shops and the consumers. So that's actually something that we really need to look at, the premium and the value add these rices could produce and get more better market sort of return. So in that regard, ADB, we are committed to scale up on our nature positive investment. So it is not just word, we are really talking about the commitment that we have as a climate bank of Asia and Pacific. We are investing $100 billion towards 2030. And we are sort of talking about, since the cause of climate change is many ways related to agriculture, forestry, and others, the nature side of the solution should be producing part of this 100 billion, probably around 1/3 to 1/4 should be coming from nature-based solution. So there is a huge sort of commitment from our side, learning from the regional flyway initiative that we have been working on for the past few years. This is a major initiative to work on world's 100+ important wetland sites and conserve not only the migratory birds, but also work on improvement of rice production as well as other agriculture production, and really see the balance between nature, people, and food security. So we really see that these kind of initiative can be scaled up, and there is actually growing number of nature-based solution projects in ADB. We have around 10 billion close pipeline that is being built, and we are really looking forward to working with partners to make these really as a core of our offer at ADB. So with that few words, I really want to thank you for coming here. I know there's many competing sessions, but this should be the best for this morning, and you have chosen the right one to come. And so we really look forward to hearing from the distinguished speaker today. We really have a rich experience and really privileged to have all of these partners and speakers today this morning. So thank you very much, and we really look forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yoko, for that wonderful welcome message and for setting the tone for our morning session. So for this session, we will first hear from our keynote speaker from FAO, who's our co-organizer for this session. And then later, it will be followed by quick fire presentations from our panel of experts. So our keynote speaker is Lee He, Natural Resources Officer from the Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Before FAO, Lee He was working at the China Agricultural University as associate professor and has been working on water resources management, ecosystems, and biodiversity-related works and projects. She initiated, developed, and implements the eco-friendly water management program to support member countries on strategy and action plan formulation, knowledge and tools development, best practices, collecting and sharing, awareness and capacity building, project formulation and implementation for productive and healthy agriculture production systems, as well as coping with ecosystem deterioration and biodiversity loss. The floor is yours, Ms. Lee He.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the excellent opening and introduction and having me here to share the cases and the examples. Talking about sustainable agriculture, let's have a look of challenges, some examples. Regarding the threats to biodiversity, there are some common understandings, such as pollution, overexploitation of natural resources, climate change, and biological invasions, and change of habitat. last year, at the end of last year, I visited Bangladesh, the village. We can see all the ponds exhibit the symptoms of eutrophication, likely caused by an overload of nutrients from nearby farms. And here's the challenges of soil erosion, land degradation, and water stress. Invasive alien species, it can pose significant threat to crop production and also cause economic loss and biological damage. The nets used to protect the yields. However, it might also trap and harm the birds. There are many more, like monoculture, low revenue, lack of incentives. Because of low revenue and the lack of incentives, the ability to afford drainage treatment varies across different farmers and regions, even in developed countries. Then let's have a look of sustainable rice production. As we know that globally, 90% of rice produced in Asia. Here we listed the top 10 rice-producing countries. IFU has a publication on the case studies for 3 countries, Thailand, China, and Vietnam. This is Thailand case. Here is the wetland complex. The paddy rice surround a reservoir, the non-hunting area. Both of them are the habitat for the endangered eastern Sarus crane. And the farmer adopted the organic farming and rebranded the rice to crane rice to have higher market price. And the ecotourism is being further explored to diversify and increase the income. Here's the wetland and the crane conservation center. Vietnam case, a government worked together with farmers to encourage the adoption of financially attractive, low risk, and flood adaptive farming. This approach can increase the storage of floods, water retention, and diversify the livelihoods, such as integrated rice and aquatics, and at the same time, reduce the negative impacts on wetlands. China case, the Poyang Lake, it's Asia's largest wintering migratory bird habitat, part of the route of migratory bird. Many of the birds, they feed on the farmland surrounding the lake. So government established the eco-compensation program to compensate the yield loss on the farmland located within 5 kilometers of the lake. IFU JEF project, Poyang Lake project, through co-management involving local farmers and the communities, the project engages in conservation activities while promoting sustainable livelihoods such as organic farming, ecotourism, as well as drainage and wastewater treatment, and hiring farmers for patrolling, monitoring. Globally important agricultural heritage system, GS. IFU program launched 2 decades ago, was designated globally 86 GS sites. Among them, 57 located in Asia Pacific represents traditional agriculture systems that contribute to food security, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable production. Here is the first GS site in Thailand, was designated the end of 2022. And the surrounding area of this GS site has been promoting the sustainable agriculture, like the biological control of pests, organic fertilizer, and the buffer zone between the riverbank and the agriculture practices to reduce the floods and floods risk and the soil erosion. And then let's move to the GS site in Japan, Sado Island. Have a look of the culture in harmony with endangered crested ibis. The catch drain, the pond, and also the flooding of the paddy field after harvesting. Both of them provided the artificial wetlands as the refuge for aquatics, which can provide the food for the migratory bird. Here, the fish passes connect the paddy field with drainage to allow fish migration, reduce the agrochemicals, and monitor the biodiversity. Another GS site in Japan, Biwa Lake, also fish passes and reduce agrochemicals use. GF project, Sustainable Agriculture in Sea Lion Area. This project adopted integrated approach covering policy development, technical guideline, promote the sustainable practices such as sustainable land, soil, water management, and wetland conservation, sustainable use, and restoration, while promoting the conservation and monitoring efforts. We can see the integrated rice and fish, rice and crab. All of them are salt-tolerant species, varieties, and the artificial wetland for the drainage treatment. And the straw, the rice straw, applied to the duck farming and mixed with the manure after fermented back to the field as organic fertilizer. And the mushroom, the reed can absorb salt and smash the reed as the media to grow mushroom. This is a pilot for the demonstration of diversified income. And I feel preparing the e-learning, managing water and fertilizer for sustainable rice production, matching the fertilizer use with irrigation scheduling and the rice growth stages to increase the farming inputs efficiency, reduce the risks of overloading nutrients to environment. And these AWD techniques, alternate wetting and drying techniques, which can reduce the water use, reduce the greenhouse gas emission, at the same time maintain the productivity. And the constructed wetland for the drainage treatment. And FAO has many more programs, initiatives linking food security with nature and the environment. For example, wetlands conservation and sustainable use. Okay. Not moving. Next slide, please. Anyway, next slide will be the program that FAO co-lead the UN Decade on ecosystem restoration. And then at the end, I will show you a slide about FAO JEF project the mainstream biodiversity into water resources management with a focus on river ecosystem. That project support the development and implementation of river health assessment approach, and that project effectively demonstrated on the ground biodiversity conservation activities, including the wetland conservation restoration and the improvement of habitat and the passages for fish species, and the project also okay. At the end, I would like to show the FAO video on wetlands linking the livelihoods with nature and environment. That's it from my side. Thank you. Please enjoy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Liha, for that wonderful keynote presentation, including that nice video. You can see like a lot, of course, at the RFR, we're biased towards the migratory water birds, but you can see that it's not just the birds, but like biodiversity in general is benefiting from this kind of sustainable agriculture. So please stay there. And now may I call on the other speakers for our quick fire presentation. So please come up on stage. So we have several speakers, please. So the next part is that each of our speakers, each of the speakers included in our panel will give a 10-minute quick fire presentation each in response to the overall presentation of our keynote speaker. And first, we have Dr. William Wynne Ellis, Executive Director of the Sustainable Rice Platform. Wynne has been based in Asia for the past 38 years and has contributed to diverse roles working with bilateral and multilateral development partners, governments, academia, the private sector, and NGOs both in Asia and Africa. His specific expertise includes agro-innovation, organic and sustainable food systems, pest management, and climate change. So Win will tell us more about the Sustainable Rice Platform, a multi-stakeholder initiative dedicated to transformation of the global rice sector through market-led and development-driven scaling partnerships. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Grace. So good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. This is the last day on a marathon of incredibly fruitful conversations on diverse topics. Asia's wetland habitats. Let me get. Can we have the presentation, please? Yeah. Okay. So Asia's wetland habitats, as we know, are at grave risk. A report from the COP13 meeting of the Ramsar Convention highlighted that around 35% of the global wetlands have been lost since 1970. So this is urgent, and it's incredibly serious for the health of our planet. Asia is home to around 52 million hectares of lowland irrigated rice that provides food security and generates for smallholder farmers, while having the potential to really preserve these critical endangered wetland habitats, of which we've heard from Lee here. And this, of course, is one of a number of objectives that were really fundamental to the establishment of the Sustainable Rice Platform, which I'll be speaking about this morning. Basically, it forms part of the SRP's ambition to transform, or to catalyze at least, a transformation of the global rice sector. So I'll begin with a snapshot of the Sustainable Rice Platform, the reasons why it was established, some of the activities, and some key messages that I hope will at least illustrate how we support, through our activities, the idea that iconic programs like the Ibis Rice program can help to drive, draw attention to, and drive change across a much broader caucus of participants than could be achieved simply by delivering these products to marketplaces. So let's start with some observations. I think I put together this slide actually before the Paris Agreement. I think that's changed quite a lot since, things have changed quite a lot since then, but this was really the original motivation for establishing the Sustainable Rice Platform. After the food price spike, we noticed that voluntary sustainability standards had been established for a whole bunch of high-profile crops like oil palm, cocoa, coffee, and so on. And that is despite the fact that the sustainability footprints and the environmental footprints of these crops are dwarfed by that of rice, which feeds half our planet. So why was it then that there was nothing really being done on rice, and why was the development community and the climate change debate and so on, the sustainable food systems debate, not looking at rice? So our first task, this really galvanized UNEP and IRRI and some private sector partners to start to think about how could we fill this gap and at least provide a working definition for what it means when we talk about sustainability in rice. So it was really time to move then from the high-profile crops like cocoa, coffee, oil palm, to high-impact crops such as rice, which affects half the planet's livelihoods. I think we're all familiar with this metric here. Rice touches a whole range of sustainable development goals, so it's impacted by and contributes to a lot of these different metrics, and particularly, of course, the role of rice in contributing to climate change, but also as its victim. And nowhere is it more significant than in Asia's deltaic regions, where rice production is often the only option. So the Sustainable Rice Platform then was established as a not-for-profit organization. It was hosted by UNEP for its first 8 years of existence. It's now an independent entity. but it strives to kind of straddle this balance between improving smallholder livelihoods, mitigating the environmental and climate change impacts of rice, contributing to resilience of smallholder production, and of course driving markets to transform to more sustainable consumption. And as you see, we've tried pretty hard, I think, to differentiate ourselves from other commodity standards, voluntary commodity standards, by ensuring that we have a very broad and eclectic clientele. And as you see from the pie chart, our stakeholders, our members are distributed fairly evenly across the stakeholder spectrum. And that's really important, because if we are developing normative tools, I'll come to that in a minute, if we are developing a standard or indicators and so on, we need to have diverse voices in the room to ensure both robustness and legitimacy when those tools start to get used in the wild, as it were. So we have 110 members spanning 33 countries right now. We're really honored to have 4 UN agencies as part of that grouping. So I think we have a very strong background, and particularly I want to recognize the role of the International Rice Research Institute in providing the technical and scientific underpinning for all that we do. So these are kind of the tools that we have developed over the last 10 years. Most importantly, I think, is the standard. It's a voluntary standard. It's a compact standard, and it's designed really to support smallholders. In other words, to really minimize the compliance burden for smallholders in meeting, adopting best practices. But we supported that practice-based instrument with a set of performance indicators so that we can really look at how, what is the impact of adoption of best practices. And what's important, and I think this remains a challenge, many research organizations have looked at individual practices like AWD, like DSR, and so on overall sustainability. But there remains quite a lot of work to be done to look at what the synergies might be between these different outcomes. What are the trade-offs between AWD and biodiversity? Are there synergies therein? And I think there is quite a lot of work to do at that kind of macro level, and IRRI has done some work through its Corrigap program in Asia to look at these trade-offs and synergies. On the back of the standard, which was launched in 2015, in 2020, we launched an assurance program to bring sustainable rice to markets, and I'll say a bit more about that shortly. And then we have other tools like a management system for producer groups and a chain of custody standard that will allow volumetric reconciliation of verified rice as it moves through from farmers all the way through the supply chain to the retailers. So that's a suite of tools that we have developed and we continue to maintain. And one important area I think I want to just mention here, retailers have come to us and said, well, we're happy that you can supply us with sustainable rice and we can make a claim on it in the market, but is it also carbon neutral? So in response to that, we will be introducing later this year a low carbon assurance module. It's an optional add-on, if you like, to the assurance program that will allow retailers to claim based on abatement of scope 3 emissions within their own supply chain. So it's an insetting scheme, not an offsetting scheme. Okay, so watch this space. SRP verified rice is available now in 20 countries, at least maybe 21. And we have just over 50,000 hectares registered in our database. So the main demand driver is in the European Union member states, but we are seeing interest in the US, in Uruguay, and in Singapore and Australia. So we're hoping for significant uptick in demand from major actors in Europe and in other parts of the world as well. And this, of course, drives change at the upstream level too. Okay, so when you've adopted the standard, what are the impacts? Many of our members embarked in 2015, 2016 on their own independent studies. These are not peer-reviewed, but they all seem to point in the same direction, which gave us confidence that even in different production contexts, there was something good that was happening here and it was benefiting smallholders really. So these are some results coming from a program that's funded by the Swiss Development Corporation, SDC, done mainly in India and Pakistan, but also a little bit in Myanmar. And basically it showed improvements in crop productivity, improvements in water use, in water savings, and crucially, emission reductions. All of this really, and what is not actually in this list here is a rather important observation that adoption of SRP tends to allow savings in input costs. And this is really important because not only does it result in net savings, in net improvements in net incomes for farmers, it also serves as an incentive for farmers to stick with the program. Okay, so this applies whether or not you are serving export markets or whether you are serving a domestic market. And that observation is quite important because a lot of the work that we've been doing is focused on export value chains, but it is I want to emphasize that it's equally important for farmers who are serving local markets. If they can reduce their input costs, they're reducing their level of indebtedness, they're improving their net income, and of course they are creating positive externalities instead of in terms of environmental and health benefits. So there's a whole host of benefits that attach that have not really been quantified. Yeah, so the benefits are market agnostic. Yeah, okay. Not moving. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So basically, to come back to the ibis rice question, I think the nexus between rice and wetlands is really important to emphasize. Rice fields represent 15% of the world's wetlands, so that's a massive responsibility, I think, for the rice stakeholder community to look at. And also, I think we tend to neglect the actual richness of the biodiversity that attaches to rice ecosystems. And so, basically, the Ibis Rice program in Cambodia focused on two iconic species. The first is the giant ibis. The second is the Bengal florican. Now, both are on the IUCN critically endangered red list. And the populations are vanishingly small right now. And Cambodia is an essential refugia for those two species. But that's not to neglect all the other species that actually coexist with these two species. And these were the reasons why the Wildlife Conservation Society began and initiated the Ibis Rice program. I'm going to skip the overview of the Ibis Rice program. We'll be hearing about that shortly in a recorded presentation directly from Wildlife Conservation Society. Nick Spencer will be presenting this. And I'm going to end with just a comment on scale, which I referred to earlier on. These particular projects are somewhat niche in their potential to scale directly, but they are absolutely flagship projects, and they're charismatic in nature and allow us to look at, to draw attention more broadly to this agenda and to, attract more attention to the need to look at how we can minimize the environmental footprint of rice production and install measures, in-field measures, to encourage biodiversity and conserve that biodiversity. I was particularly struck by the observation of Lee here in regard to alternate wetting and drying, for example, where simply by ensuring that the rice fields have refugia and ponds to ensure that biodiversity can survive periods of draining. I think that's a really important one. But how can we upscale financing for resilient rice landscapes more broadly? And I wanted to just end by mentioning a program that we are starting now with FAO and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. It's a GEF program, and it will be basically looking at filling financing gaps for small farmers in Bangladesh, in Cambodia, and in Vietnam. And basically, there will be 3 interventions, basically to design connected financing facilities that cater for a range of ticket sizes, appetites for risk, and clientele. The basic driving force here was that institutional finance is available at rather high levels, 10 million and up, but farmers actually need a non-collateralized finance at a very low level. So how can we structure financing mechanisms that allow on-lending by intermediaries in country that cater for these inherently higher risk propositions? Ultimately, we'd like to connect these 3 programs together as a GCF readiness program, and potentially to establish a global sustainable rice fund supported by the Green Climate Fund to the tune of around $500 or $600 million. And that will be enormously influential, I believe, in helping to shape the flow of funds to incentivize researchers, project developers, and other stakeholders to transform their practices towards to transform the global rice sector. So I'll stop there. A couple of key messages. Basically, I think that biodiversity conservation is not a trade-off with livelihoods. It is, the two go hand in hand. They are synergistic in nature. But we do need to do much, much more to incentivize that change, and to ensure that farmers are moving away from highly intensive production modalities to ensure that, to foster that biodiversity in the field. Thirdly, SRP itself strives to contribute to this process by reducing the overall sustainability footprint. That's what our programs are all intended to do. And maintaining the ecological integrity of rice fields, within rice fields. We'd really like to explore more collaboration with all of you, both here and online, in support of that agenda, in support of your portfolios in rice. And I'll close with an invitation to all of you to come join the SRP and help to shape the movement, help to strengthen it, and help to upscale the effort through our partnerships. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Win, for elaborating on the SRP. That's very interesting what you mentioned about the Global Sustainable Rice Fund. So looking forward to that. And as you said, it's a win-win solution for improving farmers' income and at the same time protecting wildlife, biodiversity, especially critically endangered species like the giant ibis that's being featured in the Ibis Rice. And speaking of which, Ibis Rice. So unfortunately, the CEO of Ibis Rice, Nicholas Spencer, can't make it today, but he gladly provided a recorded PowerPoint presentation. If we can start that. So we will be hearing the voice of Nicholas Spencer. We won't see his face, but that's his voice. Okay, can we play the PowerPoint? The Ibis Rice. And later we'll show you what these products are. Actually, they're very interesting. And I don't think we have it in the Philippines yet. Okay.
Hello. Yeah, so this is the giant ibis, as you saw in the video.
Wait. The first slide has some...
Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Spencer. I'm the CEO of Ibis Rice. Thanks for taking the time to learn a little bit more about what we do in Cambodia, and apologies for not being able to be there in person. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things we've achieved here at Ibis Rice very quickly, and our ambitions for the future. And really our ambition is to secure a sustainable future for the people and the wildlife of this amazing ecosystem in the north and northeast of Cambodia. So this is the giant ibis, as you saw in the video, critically endangered bird, was thought to be extinct for many years, rediscovered in around 2000, and these birds live in the habitats that you've seen in the video and in and around the farmers that we work with. Along with the giant ibis, there's over 50 threatened species, including Asian elephant, banteng, gawa, which are wild ungulates, which used to be in large numbers across Cambodia, but now really limited to these wildlife sanctuaries in the north and northeast of Cambodia. Really important ecosystem, of which there's not much left in Southeast Asia. So essentially how it works is we partner with communities on community-based forest protection. So our farmers commit to zero deforestation, zero hunting, organic farming. We support them in setting up producer groups, lots of technical training in both quality and yield improvement, sustainability, climate resilience, so things like cover crops, land levelling, access to water, are things that we really invest in with our farmers. And then, very importantly, for their organic and wildlife friendly jasmine rice, we pay 70% above market price. Should our farmers follow the compliance and be successful in adhering to their contracts. And this has grown over time. So Ibis Rice, although the concept was trialled in 2009, really since 2018, we've been taking it forward as a serious commercial venture to both scale the impact and deepen the impact for farmers and reach international markets. So we're currently more than 500,000 hectares of forest preserved around the communities we're working with, 50 endangered species therefore protected. We now have 2,000 wildlife-friendly farming households. Through those 70% premiums, with around $1.4 million paid to those wildlife-friendly farmers in direct conservation benefits. So essentially what that means to save these forests is to recruit more farmers, to build our brand so that we can add more value to the product and continue to invest in our farmers, and in doing that also launch new products. We're currently working with 2,000 farmers. We are looking to work with 5,000 farmers by 2032. We have a range of snacking products, rice cakes, breakfast cereals, packaged rice, and we have rice noodles in development, and what these do is add more value to every grain, such then, as I can say, we keep investing in our farming network. What does success look like? Well, conserving this habitat that we're working with and having successful farmers, which is a huge challenge and will be a huge success to save this environment. Improve the local livelihoods by expanding to 5,000 farmers. And in doing so, in expanding to those farmers and protecting that forest, we believe, based on baseline estimates, we'd be avoiding up to 2 million tonnes of CO2 emissions. And to grow the business to a large food brand business, $20 million valuation by 2032. Thank you very much. I believe there are some Ibis Rice products on display there. Please do take a look. Read the back of pack, and don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any more questions. Thank you very much.
So there's a video link. Can we please play the video? It's on YouTube.
Can what you eat positively impact people and planet?
it's not
Ibis
showing.
Rice is on a mission to protect the critically endangered
Okay. Yeah, that's us. Just wait a moment. So you can see it's not just rice actually. They have a variety of products. Okay, please play.
positively impact people and planet. Ibis Rice is on a mission to protect the critically endangered giant ibis and its habitat by working with rice farmers in Cambodia. The giant ibis was believed to be extinct for 50 years until it was rediscovered living near remote villages growing heritage jasmine rice. The giant ibis continues to face the threats of farmland expansion, illegal logging and poaching. With the future of the giant ibis in the hands of forest communities, Ibis Rice developed a wildlife-friendly farming model that protects wildlife whilst empowering farmers. The wildlife-friendly farming model is defined by 3 principles. 1. Organic farming. 2. Zero deforestation. 3. Zero poaching. Ibis Rice purchases their rice at up to 70% above the market price in return for their conservation commitment. Today, Ibis Rice works with over 2,000 farming families to protect over 500,000 hectares of forest, helping to sustain a better future for both wildlife and farmers.
So thank you to Nicholas for the material that he sent. They have a major holiday in Cambodia, so they can't make it. But yeah, really excellent material. And that actually, that's 70% above the usual market price. That's a lot. So it's really something that, farmers would actually be interested in if they're going to earn more and have these other environmental co-benefits. Okay, thank you. And up next, we have 2 ladies from WWF Vietnam, Nguyen Thi Tan Phong, Project Manager for the Climate Resilient by Nature in the Mekong Delta, and Ann Tran, Regional Project Manager for the Climate Resilient by Nature Mekong Expansion Project. Nguyen is a major in environmental management with more than 6 years of working in environmental services and 14 years working in sustainable agriculture, aquaculture, livelihood development, and climate change. While Anne has 10 years of experience working in the fields of water management, climate change adaptation, and sustainability, and has worked with several organizations such as the Netherlands Consulate General in Ho Chi Minh City and the Ocean Cleanup, and now WWF Greater Mekong. So Anne will give the quick fire presentation, and later we can hear from both of them during the Q&A. So Anne.
Right, good morning. Yeah, it works now, right. Hello again, good morning. My name is Anne, and I'll be presenting our work with my colleagues, Phương, our project manager from WWF Vietnam. Right. So, first of all, the Climate Resilient by Nature is an Australian government initiative in partnership with WWF Australia that advance nature-based solutions to climate change in the Indo-Pacific and support projects that work with communities to restore and protect the critical ecosystem, to build sustainable livelihood, and to increase resilience to climate shocks. The Mekong expansion components of the Sia Biome project is under the partnership between WWF Australia, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam that aims to, 1, to restore the natural habitat connecting the main rivers, floodplains, and protected areas in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Secondly, to improve the habitats for migratory and non-migratory fish species. and to restore the sediment and water levels through the restoring of seasonal flooding, recharging aquifers, and improving soil height and fertility. And with all of that, we hope to support the community with long-term socio-economic stability, and the flooded forest ecosystem will, in a key protected area, better managed and protected too. So in Cambodia, we work with our community fishery group in the Mekong flooded forest, are located in Krache and Stung Treng provinces of the country, supporting sustainable fishing, including trout patrolling, enhancement of natural fish diversity and abundance, piloting agro-biodiversity cultivation, and development of ecotourism. In Laos, the CRBIN project, we work with the communities in Sinvandon, a river scape, or the so-called 4,000 islands, on the promotion of sustainable fishery, including the co-management of fish conservation zone and river patrolling, restoration of the surrounding forest habitat, promoting of ecosystem-based adaptation to climate change for sustainable livelihood through the implementation of village development fund and ecotourism. In Vietnam, we work with the local community in the buffer zone of Lang Sang Wetland Reserve to adopt the flood-based livelihood strategy, including a mixed aquaculture model for the floating rice and fish, access to revolving fund, fish restoration program, as well as enhancing sedimentation and water storage through the restoration of natural flooding processes in the delta. And since our time is rather limited, I would like to bring your attention to the integrated floating rice and fish model, where the floating rice seedling are planted and the fish fingerling were released when the annual flood comes and ready for harvest as the water goes. So, as you already know, that the Mekong Delta is well known for its capacity to support the 3 rice harvests per year. But the third one, which occurs during the natural flood season, bring with it a range of problems, including the large amount of pesticide and fertilizer harming the soil, the water, the fish, without allowing them to replenish. So since 2022, WWF Vietnam has worked with the local government and the community for the implementation of 100 hectares of the floating rice and fish model, that to support the local farmer and conserve the ecosystem and biodiversity of the area, where the seasonal flooding is restored by transforming the current agricultural models away from the intensive 3 crop of rice. So the floating rice used to be the main source of high quality food that has significant cultural, ecological, environmental, and historic value to the Mekong Delta people. However, due to the country agriculture policy reform and the construction of dike, floating rice almost completely disappeared by 2012. By the ability to rise along with the flood water level, without the need for chemicals, fertilizer, pesticide, the floating rice is crucial for the adaptation of the flood-based culture, assuring food availability for the people, and reviving the natural nesting for fish and other aquatic species. And for the fish, the farmer will release the fingerling-sized fish into the field with the floating rice at the beginning of the flood season, let them grow and survive on their food provided by the natural aquatic environment, and harvest the fish as they reach harvestable size at the end of the flood season. So with this system, right, we have a more sustainable and continual available stock of harvestable fish, and we also allow, because by allowing their natural condition to dictate the rate of the fish growth, there will be we create an ecosystem-based market demand for this, which also help provide the farmer with higher price, selling price for the fish rather than those farm fish that we have most of the time from the Mekong Delta. This is a quick brief of the data being collected and analyzed from the most recent flooding in 2023. So if you look here, we compare the profit and the environmental benefit from the two conventional rice combined with the floating rice and fish model as one full cycle year of production compared to the three intensive rice crop. So here you can see that the profit rate of the first model actually higher than the one that the farmer always go to, which is the intensive tree crop of rice. Why the profit of the second model actually higher? Why is that? Because for the second model, the farmer have to pay a lot more for chemical input, including like more fertilizer, more pesticide to make sure that they have a higher yield. And the floating rice models have 2.5 times as much sedimentation and almost 20 times higher of water retention capacity compared to the intensive farm tree rice crop, which also help to reduce the flooding risk downstream and save more water for the dry season. But all of that might not matter if there is no stability in the turbulent market for the rice and the fish, right? So that's why WF Vietnam has been working with various public and private sectors trying to elevate the market value chain for the fish production and the floating rice production. So for the fish, one harvest, they will be processed or dried in the machine provided to the community and then vacuum sealed. And then the fish can be sold in the local market or distributed elsewhere in the country. And though they are still in a very early stage of the product and market testing stages, we already have like floating rice meal, floating rice noodles, floating rice flour, a wider range of floating rice value-added products that would appeal to the domestic and international buyer, especially in the health and wellness market. And with all this, WWF Vietnam and the CR Bayan Mekong projects hope to help to drive the uptake of the flood-based product in the freshwater area of the Mekong Delta and to build up the pipeline of farmer willingness to transition to flood-based agriculture around the protected areas. So that's what has been going on with us for the past 2 years. So what's next? So right now, we are working with Royal Haskoning DSV to conduct a technical and financial feasibility assessment of freshwater NBS in the Mekong sub-region. So this is to investigate the feasibility of scaling NBS in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, including identifying the technical and financial feasibility of the shortlisted NBS at the selected site for their viabilities for public and private sector financial investment. We also engage international, regional, local NBS stakeholders, including potential investors, for what is their take for NBS project and the barrier for investment and scaling up. So if you look here, there are the main deliverables of the assessment. We have the stakeholder engagement, including the identification of the barriers. We have the shortlisted NBS for the Mekong sub-region overlaid with maps and data to visualize which NBS type are suitable in which region, including being financially viable, having potential to generate cash flow, and an accepted risk profile. And the last one, we will have an I report out of this one. So this is a sneak peek of what our assessment and the I report would look like. We have selected 3 case studies for the technical and financial analysts. In Thailand, we have the Guting Marsh for improving riverine wetland ecosystem and increase connectivity with the main rivers. For Vietnam, we have the Lang Sang Wetland Reserve, which is where the floating rice and fish model is, for improving natural floodplains dynamics through the adaptation of flood-based agriculture and aquaculture. In Cambodia, we are looking at Kom Cho Sar in the Tole Sap for improving the flooded forests. So this is another sneak peek. This is the visualization of the Vietnam case study. So here you can see the total area of the buffer zone of the wetland and how it could be redeveloped for flood-based agriculture in phases. So the proposed MBS are tangible and intangible costs and benefit for different stakeholders. So the aim of this is to show the potential funders, which are, it can be government, it can be international financing institute, private investor, philanthropical organization of the proposed NBS measures, the opportunity of NBS investment through a high-level financial feasibility analysis by scale and type of stakeholders. And by the end of May 2024, we aim to have the iReport launched for public access to reflect our study with a hope to bridge the gap between the NBS pilot project and investment for scaling up. And so, thank you.
That was a very interesting presentation on the climate resilient by nature and the floating rice fish model. It's actually my first time to learn about it, so it's really very interesting. So thank you very much, Anne. And last but not the least, we have from the Philippines, Ms. Amy Lecciones, Executive Director of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands. Ms. Amy works in the areas of environmental planning, policy, capacity development, project management, monitoring and evaluation, as well as knowledge management and communication. And she has helped shape the national agenda for sustainable development in the Philippines. She has extensive experience in wetland conservation and management, wetland biodiversity assessment and monitoring, including ecological profiling, ecosystem services assessment, and ecosystem restoration employing nature-based solutions. So, Ms. Amy?
Thank you, Ms. Karen. Actually, when Duncan and Karen asked me if I could speak in this session, I told them, wait, I will think about it first. Because when I saw the title, it says case studies on Ibis Rice, and we have not done anything on Ibis Rice, but it also says more. So I think that's where my presentation falls under the more. Case studies on Ibis Rice and more. Okay, so let me see if I can do this. Oops. Where do you point this? Oh, there. Okay. Point it there. All right. This is challenging for a senior citizen. Okay. So, for starters, let me just introduce my organization. Oops. Okay, so I am with the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands. We are a 26-year-old organization. It's a nonprofit, and we, of course, the principal objective of our organization is to promote the wise use and conservation of wetlands in the Philippines, mostly by facilitating linkages and networking among wetland advocates, engaging in wetland conservation, providing technical assistance, and forum on wetland-related issues, and complementing wetland management activities through research, training, and CPA, that is communication, capacity building, education, participation, and awareness. Oops. Okay, sorry about that. So I will be taking you to a journey that we experienced over the past more than 10 years on how we got into this project in Candaba. So it will be about the wetlands of Candaba, which is composed of vast complex of freshwater ponds, swamps, and marshes, with surrounding areas of seasonally flooded grasslands, arable lands, palm savanna, and vast alluvial floodplain. Okay. This 32-hectare area is usually flooded during the wet season. It turns into a big lake. But most of it dries out during the dry season. This is during November to April. So right now it is actually dry. And is converted into rice fields and plantations of watermelons and corn. It is also an important area for agriculture and fisheries production, water for irrigation, and since it is a floodplain, for natural flood retention. One peculiar thing about this area is that of the 32,000 hectares, more than 90% of that is privately owned or titled. So it's a very, challenging for us to do conservation work, since these are all privately owned. Okay, but Candaba Wetlands is really very important because it is a key biodiversity area. It's an important bird area, part of the East Asian Australasian flyway, and the presence of migratory and endangered species is still, they still have there, and particularly the endemic and vulnerable Philippine duck. So this is the map of the province of Pampanga, and we are focusing on Candaba. And our project site is actually a village within the Candaba wetlands called Barangay Paligi. Barangay means village. Okay, so this, we just got lucky because we were able to talk to the farmers. This is called the Makagatal Irrigators Association that own these 135 hectares of farmland, which are all rice land, in Barangay Paligi. So we were able to talk to these farmers, and this is how it looks like. During the dry season, this was taken on the same spot. During dry season, it looks like that, the top photo. And during the wet season, it turns into a lake. Okay, so what do we have there in Barangay Paligi? Okay, so in terms of, we did characterization of the area in 2018. And we found out that, of course, during dry season, there are more flora species since it is not submerged. But during the wet season, we only found 10 species, and of course, the water hyacinth is there all the time. And then for fish, there are only 7 species. 2 are native, the rest are exotic and invasive. The farmers do not seed, fish. They don't seed it. It's just there. It probably was taken there through flooding, and sometimes through the irrigation canals. And in terms of avifauna, during the dry season, there are 34 species with 3,487 individuals, and is reduced considerably during the wet season to only 16 species and 242 individuals. So these are some of the species that are found there. And this is just to show you the trend of how it is through the Asian water bird census in the area, in the whole of Candaba. You can see that from 2010 to 2018, it had been decreasing, and all of a sudden it spiked during the pandemic, probably because there were not many people going in the area. But it fell again in 2022, and now it's recovering in 2023 and 2024. In terms of entomofauna, there are 21 morphospecies observed during the visit but only a single species of a spider was observed. All of the arthropods observed are typically found in agroecosystems. In terms of ecosystem services, of course, it provides all four, a lot of provisioning, regulating, supporting, and cultural services, as you can see. I won't go into them anymore. But Candaba wetlands continue to be drained and converted into various land uses. It's actually very alarming because it severely limits habitats for waterfowls. I took this picture myself, and my model is Dari there. She's the one. Okay, that's her back. In 2015, along Santa Ana Highway, you can see the wetland. And after just 2 years, the whole area became warehouses. It had been declassified as industrial zone. These agricultural areas have been reclassified as agricultural zone. Okay, so these are also some of the problems that are confronting these wetlands. As I said, the conversion of agricultural areas to other uses, unsustainable agricultural practices, still heavy use of chemical fertilizers, aquaculture practices that affect water quality, poor solid waste management, siltation, electrofishing, prevalence of exotic and invasive species such as janitor fish, the golden snail, and the water hyacinth, and illegal hunting. Also, there's lack of awareness of stakeholders on the importance of wetlands and lack of baseline data for management and use in SIPA activities. Also, the lack of capacity extends to farmer stakeholders in managing the said wetlands. Okay, so this is very recent photos taken. This Pinak Food Park, this had been recently, actually what happened was during the pandemic, people were looking for outdoor activities, and all of a sudden this area became very popular. And right now, just about 2 months ago, they sort of established this Pinak Food Park, and they are very proud of it because they said it's the longest food park in the Philippines, but you can imagine this is just like less than a kilometer or 500 meters towards the right. That is where our project site is. And on the other side, you can find solid waste dumping. So, and this was just taken, the food park was taken, the photo was taken about 2 weeks ago. And the solid waste dumping, we just took it the other day. Okay, so we started working in the area in 2010. As you can see, we already did a series of projects and activities competing for grants just so we will be able to help restore this area. So, I will just walk you through very briefly to them. So the first one is the Treepreneur project. This is a reforestation project in Mount Arayat because of the siltation, to help arrest the siltation that is affecting the floodplains. So we trained 200 families in backyard nursery and did an 80-hectare enrichment plantation in Mount Arayat. And that we conducted trainings for them to do the backyard nursery, parataxonomy, eco-trek guiding with the Department of Tourism, and social entrepreneurship. Right now, the 80-hectare enrichment plantation site that is planted to tamarind, the farmers since 2016 had been supplying tamarind to Unilever, which also co-funded this project. And they had been supplying tamarind to Unilever for the tamarind mix, which is used in a very popular cuisine in the Philippines called sinigang. So last year, I think they earned 750,000 pesos from this. So it really increased the the income of the farmers, and at the same time, they still do the nursery gardening and selling them to reforestation projects. These are just done in their backyards. And then in 2016, we were approached by the North-South Commuter Railway because they were going to sacrifice wetland in Valenzuela to be converted into a train depot. So we had to look for a wetland that will be used. Okay, so we did a management plan for that. And the next one was funded by the Ramsey Regional Center in East Asia. And for this, we finalized the Paligi wetland and wetland management plan, and did also the bird watching guide training in cooperation with the Department of Tourism. So after that, we also had a project with ACB where we prepared an inland wetland restoration toolkit. Okay, and finally, this is our final project now. This is work in progress. Oops. So we are actually establishing farm tourism in the area. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So under the Living Lakes Biodiversity and Climate Project, which is funded by the International Climate Initiatives, we are developing or establishing sustainable farm tourism in the area, which we are implementing ecosystems approach, engaging multi-stakeholder participation, nature-based solution, capacity building, and this will all be, we will also be conducting capacity building activities. We already did the groundbreaking for the Wetland Center complex. We already have we also signed the memorandum of agreement with the local government, and we are starting to build the Wetland Center education complex. This will be the hub for the farm ecotourism that we are developing. So that is how it will look like. And in summary, our mission is really to improve the lives of farmers by increasing their income and to conserve wetlands by reducing pressure on wetland ecosystems through these activities that we are implementing. And as I said, this is work in progress. Because finally, after the management plan that we did in 2016, we were able to get funding now for the implementation of the management plan. And one of our supporters here, as you can see, we did just the other day a field visit with the ADB staff. That's Duncan, and so you can see a sample of the activities there. So with that, thank you, and sorry for the mess up presentation for clicking. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Amy. Yes, we just visited the site and we actually met and talked with the farmers of the Irrigation Association there. So it's different when you're on the ground and you meet them and hear about the issues that they're facing. And from the previous examples in the other countries in Asia, it seems like these are good practices that can be applied here in the country, considering that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. All right, so now that we've heard from our distinguished speakers, so the floor is now open for the Q&A, but it's time's up, but we might go over time a little bit, maybe 10 minutes. So is there anyone who has a question on the floor? Because we actually have 29 participants on Zoom. So it's work from home for a lot of people on a Friday. So a lot of them joined online. And I saw that there's a question. There are two questions. So if no one is going to... we have one. So we'll take one on the floor. Please say your name and organization before your question. And then we'll go and ask the questions on the screen.
Okay, good morning. Andrew Powell, Asia Biobusiness in Singapore. Wynne, I've got a question for you about your assurance schemes. How do you verify the good practice? Is it self-assessment, or are you using external agents?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Yes, in common with many schemes, the SRP Secretariat oversees 4 or 5, I think it's 5 now, independent third-party auditors. So Control Union, Preferred by Nature, OneCert in India, Vina Control in Vietnam, just joining, and Agrocolor in Spain are accredited to deliver independent third-party verification audits. And we oversee the consistency of those audits as required by the retailers. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so here's a question from Rodek de la Cruz online. One of the reasons why I'm attending the meeting is the disappearance of the Candaba swamp. Oh, I actually know Rodek. He's a friend. I'm a birdwatcher, and Candaba swamp used to encompass 32 hectares of wetland that is major stopover of migratory birds. There used to be 10,000 water birds that stay there. However, most of the swamp have become rice lands. We saw less than 300 birds when we went 2 years ago. The Philippines and countries must learn sustainable agriculture for us to be able to protect these migratory birds. It's actually a comment. So, anyone would like to respond to the comment?
Yeah,
Ms.
maybe
Amy?
just a clarification, because actually rice lands are wetlands. Yeah, so if, it's just that it's a human-made wetland, yeah, compared to a natural swamp. So it's still possible, of course, to protect the birds even with the rice lands there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Amy. Anyone else would like to respond? Or I'll move to the next question from Wesley Pereira. If wetlands are used for wastewater treatment, what impact can such plans have on the farming communities that presently depend on such water bodies or wetlands to meet their water requirements for growing non-monsoon crops? Okay, if wetlands are used for wastewater treatment, what impact can such plans have on farming communities that presently depend on such water bodies or wetlands to meet their water requirements for growing non-monsoon crops? So it's about wetlands being used for like water treatment, and then how does it work if you're using it for crop growing and also during the non-monsoon crop season. Ms. Amy?
Well, if we are using constructed wetlands to treat water, it depends where you are. Like, for example, we have a constructed wetland in Pangil River Eco Park. We are constructing it now. The reason for this is we would like the waste in the park to be treated before it goes to the river, which eventually, of course, becomes source of irrigation. So if you can clean the wastewater using a nature-based solution, using constructed wetlands, it is actually cost-effective and very efficient. And in some other cases, they use the floating constructed wetlands that they use. So these plants absorb pollution. So it's also beneficial. Yeah.
How about in Vietnam? Do you have experience on this with respect to wastewater?
I can share a bit about the work applied the wetland, Langsang Wetland Reservation, and the place for natural treatments of water, and also with the nature-based solution, we support for the community around, so they can don't enter to the cores of the wetlands, so support together. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, these constructed wetlands are, it's a more natural way of treating certain wastewater. But I guess if you're talking about more complicated like wastewater from industries, then that's a different picture. Especially like domestic waste or industrial waste, that's a different story. But I think we're talking about like agricultural wastewater that can be treated by constructed wetlands.
Yes.
Okay, we have a question from Noreen Foliosco. So this is a general query to the panel. Have there been opportunities and inroads to replicate your best practices in the Philippines? Thank you.
Yeah. In the Philippines?
Yeah, or Miss.
So for our models, unfortunately, our study didn't cover the Philippines, but we are very open and willing to share our findings, our method, our what it has been like, what we look forward to, with anyone, organization in the Philippines that willing to explore the opportunity with us.
Yeah, I guess from the SRP side, we are also very open to working with partners in the Philippines to implement SRP here. We are already, the Department of Agriculture is actually already a member, and the Department of Natural Resources as well, DNR, is also a member of the SRP. So, we'd be very open to having conversations about how we can look at implementation here. Thank you.
All right, so you have their contact information. You can get in touch with our speakers. We have one last question on the floor before we go to the closing.
Thank you for allowing this. And thanks to everyone, it was a great session, very informative, and thanks to the organizers for organizing this. I had a quick question. I don't know if there could be a quick answer to this. I think what I gathered in both Ibis Rice and in the CRXN, this is basically not using any chemical inputs. And it seemed like, some form of natural farming. So the question is, was there any impact on yields, at least in the beginning? And if there were, did the yields come back? How much time did it take for that? Or was there no impact at all? Thanks.
Yes, I can share a bit on that. With floating rice, either native species, so they can adapt to the flood when the water rise, and the rice will grow up to adapt to the flood. And with that kind of species, we don't put any like fertilizer or pesticide inside because very water a lot. And of course, the yields of the floating rice very low, like 1.5 ton per hectare. But we can combine with we adding the natural fish into the floating rice for the mixed model, so the farmer can earn more. Beside the floating rice, they can earn the benefit from the fish, and with the natural one. And that's kind of the model we want to upscaling in the upper province of the Mekong, and consider for the research of royal husbandry for scaling up in the Thailand and or in the Cambodia and the suitable regional. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Just 1 minute. Yeah. So just to build up on my colleague's answer is that we already work with like independent like BV to have a certified that there's no trace of chemical from our floating rice. So like she mentioned that the next step for the next phase is that we're trying to looking for the better seedling so that it can help increase the yield of the floating rice, so that it can help but right now the selling price for the floating rice is already higher than the normal conventional rice. So plus that one, plus with the feed and the fish collected from the site, from the project models, and also there's like, actually, to be honest, like there's like a lot less labor for the floating rice compared to the normal one. You just plant it and it will just grow and rise by itself. So that's why the profit rate is actually higher than the trade conventional rice. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess we have to wrap up our Q&A because we're really running out of time. Thank you. A round of applause again to our speakers. You may now go back to your seats. And let me now introduce our closing speaker, Yasmin Siddiqui, the Director of the Agriculture, Food, Nature, and Rural Development Sector Office under the sector groups of ADB. In ADB, Yasmin has led project conceptualization, loan and technical assistance processing, and administration of complex loans. She continues to drive knowledge solutions on water security, irrigation management, integrated water resources management, and innovative financing, including private sector participation. She also plays an active role in the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation, or CAREC, program, and in the strategic planning of agriculture and natural resources in the Central and West Asia region. Great to have you here, Yasmin.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And given the interest of time, I'll try to fast forward this. And despite all of the intro, I must say I'm truly humbled to be in the presence of so much tremendous knowledge. And the word I used, and I'm going off script from Duncan's kind remarks, but I just wanted to say wow, because it's a wow moment I had today listening to this session. And I almost, felt like switching professions and joining one of your groups. And secondly, consider it very important, almost to the point where such sessions could almost be compulsory for many of the staff that we work with in agriculture, food, nature, and rural development. Because while we have nature in our title, that understanding of nature really sits with colleagues beyond our teams sometimes. And I'm looking forward that with this reorganization that ADB has invested in so heavily, we'll have the opportunity to draw on that tremendous knowledge base within ADB and beyond it, as well as we've learned from our really tremendous panelists. So thank you very much for the introduction, Karen, and it's a great pleasure to do the closing remarks. As I said, I will fast forward them. But firstly, Yoko, thank you for the opening discussion and the opening remarks, in which I believe you really set the tone of how do we bring so many of these issues together to find those solutions without making them overly complex, that they cannot be delivered at the ground level. As we've heard in the last few days, ADB has positioned itself, and it is the Asia-Pacific Climate Bank, with an ambitious target of $100 billion worth of climate financing by 2030. So looking at nature-positive investments in the context of food security is a reality that we need to step up to today without thinking about 2030. The question is, how can we do this all at the same time? And of course, it's a huge challenge, but I must say that this session today brings a lot of hope and refreshment that there is that possibility out there. It's about how do we share it across to different countries, how do we scale up those innovations that you've demonstrated, and how can ADB also play a key role in supporting this transition to more sustainable practices. Today we've been very lucky to hear all of these ideas in a very engaging and interactive session, and I believe just the sheer number of questions at the end, and I was nudging Duncan, hurry up, but the fact that you have so many questions reflects to me the tremendous level of interest that exists and that you've generated in the room today. So I'm very grateful. Just running through some of those highlights, Lihi, we really, it was fortunate to have you here to learn about the overview of the challenges that are faced and the barriers that we have often when we're trying to do such initiatives. And ADB is very familiar with some of those barriers towards helping clients on that pathway towards sustainable agriculture. It's encouraging to hear from you about the work in PRC, in Thailand, with the Saras crane rice, and looking at the alternate wetting and drying practices. And I believe a number of colleagues are going to Erie this afternoon to really see that and see the benefits of it. And we're trying very much to upscale that in countries such as Bangladesh, and our India government colleagues are sitting right there. And I'm sure it resonates well with the potential we have for India as well. From WIN, it was from SRP, it was a great opportunity to listen to the work on more sustainable rice. And the presentation really brought home this point about how rice is globally so significant, but particularly in this region. It is such a staple for us. Its price volatility, its fundamentals for nutrition, but also its impacts of the environment are that nexus that we really need to work on solving. But platforms such as SRP can be critical to our learning and to sharing that learning across the region. And then perhaps my favorite on the Ibis rice. This really got my eyes wide open, and you may have seen me run across to my colleagues from Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change from Government of India, and I whispered that, oh, this is fascinating, can we do this in India? So we have tremendous opportunities, but it's about how do we share this knowledge across. And we have some ideas that we'll discuss with Yoko and Duncan afterwards. But I do believe it's important to cross-fertilize experience and for you to also share some of the challenges you faced and bring the reality check to our government counterparts in other regions to say, look, these are some of the challenges, but it's about teamwork. And I really believe now we have to just hold hands with each other because we're on this climate train together. And if we don't hold hands, some of us will fall off the train. So let's keep it tight. WWF, I always enjoy hearing from you about the work that you do. Tremendous respect and kudos to you as well. And what you presented, Ms. Anne, again, resonated well, and a colleague here saying, can we take this to one of our countries that we're working in? Because it's exactly some of the challenges we face, but you present some solutions that I believe truly resonate with other deltaic countries where we're trying to have that balance between agricultural production, conservation of wetlands, and how do we do it when often the government counterpart may be an infrastructure department or infrastructure-focused department who's saying, dredge the channels and build in the structures, and we're saying, hold on, there's other ways we can manage this. Lastly, Miss Amy from SCPW, can we come with you on the next trip? And it's a shame we didn't have the trip today. And I may suggest to our organizers that next time on a Friday, if we're ending, we have the opportunity to have some field visits, given that we have so many government representatives here. I'm sure they would benefit from seeing on the ground what it means in reality and talking to the farmers and beneficiaries and stakeholders to understand how they can really engage in that pathway to achieving conservation targets whilst also maintaining productivity and livelihoods levels. So we really very much look forward to scaling up production in partnership, delivering on climate and supporting biodiversity. For me, I just wrote it down in headlines in my diary, biodiversity, climate, the two are inseparable. And Yoko, you resonate that point very well. Transitioning to more sustainable production is no longer a nice, let's try to do it. It's an imperative, and I believe the work that you've presented today really demonstrates how we can try to achieve it. Lastly, just to say really a tremendous thank you to all of you for coming here, for presenting your ideas and giving us the opportunity to learn from you. As I said, humbling moments happen, and this session was one of those, so I'm very grateful to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that wonderful speech, Yasmin. It just highlights the key points of all our speakers during this session. So before we all go for the break, let me just thank again our speakers, Yasmin, Yoko, Win, Miss Amy, Fong, and Anne, and of course Liha, who's our partner in having this session. And of course, Duncan Lang, RFI team leader who actually did all the behind the scenes for this session. And of course, to the Asian Pacific Food Security Forum organizers for having us. And most especially your audience here and on Zoom. So we actually have more people on Zoom. Thank you very much and for the questions that you raised. And so before we go, may I ask the speakers to come to the front and we'll have photo op. So all of us here. And Duncan has goodies for our speakers from Ibis Rice. So again, thank you for coming to this deep dive session. And I hope you learned a lot and you use this opportunity to collaborate with our agriculture and sustainability stakeholders. Have a good morning. Please have your break. And maraming salamat po.